All right. Good evening, everyone. I am your host, Dr. Kathleen Walls. Welcome to Planters Knowledge Podcast. If you have been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Planters Knowledge is a space and place for us to get to know authors, learn about their genre, learn about their author's journey, and hopefully you will be inspired to share your story one day in the written form. I am super excited to have this author tonight. I had the pleasure of meeting her. I can't believe it's like 2 months now
It's been about,
almost.
yeah, I can't
It's
believe it either.
crazy.
Yeah,
And so when I met you, your book was hot off the press.
it
So
was.
I'm
Yep.
excited because I have one of those original copies here. So this is author Amy Ayres. So Amy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, Kathleen. Thank you so much for having me. I
You're
am thrilled to
welcome.
be part of this. This is
Yes.
an awesome idea, and I love it.
Yes, I love it. And I love your background. I love the twinkling tree. This is so good. So we are definitely festive and we are ready to
Yeah.
rock and roll. So, and
Awesome.
good evening, everyone who's joining us in the chat. Please feel free. You can leave your comments, ask your questions, and we're going to get this party started. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been doing the author thing for probably about 3 or 4 years now, seriously, I would say. But
Okay.
before that, I have been a writer for I don't know how many years, probably 20, 25 years,
Oh,
in
wow.
um, different venues. I know I'm older than I look. I'm a 42-year-old mother of a toddler who
Oh,
just turned 3.
oh.
Yes, I know, the fun age. It's a fun age.
Mm-hmm.
And then I work part-time for a small press that runs a yearly spring summit called the
Oh,
Women in Publishing Summit.
oh, nice.
To shout out to them. They do amazing work reaching out into the publishing world and connecting people, I think, is a big part of what we do. So
Okay.
I am just thrilled to do these kinds of things. I love meeting other authors. I love meeting people interested in learning about
Mhm.
writing and authoring. And the event that you and I met at a few months back was the very first author event that I ever attended in my life,
Oh, was
as an
it?
author, I should say.
Oh, wow.
So, so you saw me, and like I was green,
Mhm.
and new at that, very new at it, but it was thrilling. I love doing them now. They're fun. You get to
Good,
meet some cool people. So
good. I was gonna ask you what were your takeaways from that day?
that event was really fun because it was at the mall. And
Mhm.
so we got all the mall foot traffic. And I
Mhm.
think that there were a lot of people who were there who weren't expecting there to be, 20, 25
Yeah,
authors just
yeah.
sitting there being like, hi,
Yeah, right.
nice to meet you. Here's my book. You want to? And it was just funny. It was fun to watch their like interest level
Yeah,
rise as we talked to them and gave them our pitches and showed them our books. And as
yeah.
they looked at our displays, like,
Yes.
wow, this is such a cool thing that you guys are doing. And it's
Mhm.
fun to see people's faces go from like, I'm at the mall to like
Yes.
light up and in like excited and having a good time. So I kind of took in a lot of that energy. I felt
Yeah,
that excitement. And that was,
yeah.
it's fun. I think it's a lot of fun.
I enjoy doing them too for that reason as well. You get a chance to meet people you would never meet any other way, and to be able to talk about the work that you've created, and then also to build your community of authors as well.
Definitely.
Because potentially you and I might have been standing in line at CVS, but we may have not talked about the fact that we both have books.
For
So
sure.
this Right? So this is a great opportunity to do that. And I do like looking at other people's setups because as you get more product or so forth, it gives you ideas on how to
Mm.
present your materials. And so I mention that because I do want you to tell people about your book because people, if you notice down here at the bottom, it says book 3.
Yep.
So this means that there are some other ones. There we go. So there are some
The
other ones.
longest one. Well,
So
and speaking of the other ones, I
yes.
brought book 1.
All right.
to get people started. This book made me an award-winning author. I can call myself that
Wait
now.
a minute. There we go.
I know. I told my husband, I was like, now you can tell people that you're married to an award-winning author, and not just someone who writes books.
Let's talk
because
about
there's a distinction.
That's right. That's right.
But I was very excited about the progression of this series because my whole spiel is that actually the current book 2 was originally book 1, and it was meant to be a standalone. And in essence, it is sort of a beginning to end story. You could read book 2 and be like, that was an interesting story. Okay. But if you are piqued by the characters and you want to learn more about them, reading book 1 through book 3 is going to give you like that wealth of information. So going back to book 1, we meet the main character, Luccee Winterscott, and the dystopian world that she's in. And this one gives like a lot of backstory as far as like what's happened on Earth and why she's in the mental state and the living the way she is. And I don't want to give too much away, but I will. Maybe we'll get into it. But and then book 2 really kind of like saves her from that like place emotionally, and then the book you have, book 3, is the continuation of the story where she really is able to like evolve as a person and grow and find her tribe, which is why it's called Star Tribe. So Star Lost is book 1. So obviously that's the essence, is like we're lost, we're in the dark, everything is very dystopian. And then Star Sick is book 2, which the idea is like there's still some sickness. It may not be in the main character. It may be in the people around her. It may be in the world she lives in. And then Star Tribe is her finding her found family and it growing. She gains a found family, but then she creates her own family also. Gotcha. So that's the gist.
Okay. All right. So let's back up a little. Well, before we back up, where can people find these books?
So all of the books are on KDP and Amazon.
Okay.
That's the best place to find them. Book 1 has mass distribution, though. You can find it basically anywhere through Drafted Digital. It's on barnesandnoble.com. It's on Apple Books. It's basically anywhere you would find books. So the other books aren't in mass distribution right now. I'm working on that, but like Star Lost is everywhere. So.
Okay. All right. So now let's go back to your origins of an author. When did that even start for you?
It's so funny because, everybody wants to talk about when they started as a kid. I did have an interest in writing as a child, but funny, like if you'd asked me what I wanted to do back then when I grew up, I would have said I wanted to be Audrey Hepburn. That was my thing that I would say. I love the musical My Fair Lady. I had it memorized.
Wow.
I was a little performer. And then over time, as I got older, I got this sense that I liked being in nature. And I had a little journal and I started writing about my feelings as far as like how I felt about being in nature and everything. Like I used to go to the Poconos a lot as a kid. So really where it started. And I just felt like a commune with the surroundings. And I felt like I had something to say that I feel like I wasn't seeing like on TV or hearing on the radio. I was like, there's like emotions that I'm feeling that people aren't talking about. Anyway, that's sort of like, so going forward from that, I feel like writing has always been a source of therapy for me. Going through those phases of life, your adolescence, I obviously most like journaled throughout my adolescence, wrote horribly, like lovesick poetry that would be embarrassing to anyone. And we all go through that phase, right? And then when I went to college, I did some acting, I did some voice, and I love doing that. I still do. But I was like, I think I should go to school for writing or learn more about writing, at least, maybe become a teacher, or maybe teach other people to write, just see where I can go with this, drive that I have, because I had a passion for it by that time. And I was given the opportunity to write a lot of things and to, write for newspapers and, submit to magazines and everything. And I was still writing the poetry.
Okay.
The poetry was still a thing. But then one day, after I published a couple of chapbooks of poetry, I was like, maybe I should try writing a book. And that's, I think, like in my mid to late 20s was when I started to be like, okay, I think I can probably try this. You can see 42, it took a while for me to really figure out the process. But yeah, that stretch of time was me, I think, just learning, trying to soak in everything, building community, meeting people, learning from them, and navigating the industry, the world, the author world that's sort of hidden from the rest of the world, right?
Very true. It's so interesting that you say that, because I know when I became an author, I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, going to school to become an educator, going to school to become a psychologist, there was a pathway there. You take these classes, you do this, you go out, you get a job in a school, you go out, you get a job in a clinic. Like, there's a certain, but it was like, an author, I don't know how this works. And you try to figure it out, and then you try the traditional route, and there's a whole thing with that. And then the self-publishing part came, and there's a whole thing with that. But there are a lot of question marks and a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, I would say it always feels like whenever you try something new, it's like you're starting all over again. You're going back to square one, and you're relearning the whole process all over again, which is, like you said, in other industries, you do feel like you're progressing. There's, there's benchmarks, there's a yardstick. I've gotten this far. I'm just going to keep going. But the yardstick for authors, I feel like, is always just like, I don't no idea what to do. And no one else knows what they're doing either. And we're just trying to learn from each other.
I feel like we're Harry Pottering it. And we're just
exactly.
Is that going to work? It's like, no, that's not it either.
Yeah, the professors don't know anything because the industry keeps changing. So they can't actually like put a rubber seal on anything.
So true. So true. So now, so with that, now you get this moment in your 20s where you're saying, I think I can do this. And you have this history of poetry, of these love-struck poems, these feelings that other people aren't expressing, this love of nature. What are you thinking you're going to write about? And does it turn out to be that which you thought it would be?
That is an amazing question, because I feel like the way I answer it may help some people who are stuck at that point. Right. I wrote a very, very long love story. And I say very, very long because at the time I didn't know anything about word count requirements or structure, or, I learned some things in school, but not the things you need to know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was a good first try, I'll say. Okay. And I was very precious about it because I think the narrative that's sold to people outside of the industry is, if you want to write a novel, you write a novel, and it's the only novel you'll ever write, and it's going to be perfect when you write it, and like it doesn't, it doesn't require rewrites, and every time anyone says anything negative about it, they're wrong. You know what I mean? Like you just have this very easily bruisable ego around the first thing that you write. And I learned the hard way that is not an author life. You can't write one thing and it's perfect and, like everyone's on board. That's not But it was a really great experience to type the end on something. And I think that those two words were really the two most important words in that book, because it taught me one thing, and that was, even if it's not a good book, even if it's not something not everyone's cup of tea, I wrote it and it's finished. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people who attempt it they never type the end, or they don't know how to get to the end. I mean, it's hard. It's a really hard process, especially if you are a novice, you don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I would just say, if you're in that, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's okay. You're not going to ever know what you're doing. You're just always trying new things.
That's it. That's it.
Right.
I love that. And it's so true. I know in my first children's book, when I did get to the end, there was this sensation of it's wrapped, it's closed. It was like the tie and the bow. It was like, wow, that's done. And similar to your book too, it is a standalone. Like it could have just stopped and been finished, but then the other ones came jumping out. And I say jumping purposely because my children's book are The Adventures of Froggy T and Bunny. So they're a frog and a rabbit, so they jump, right? So they came jumping out. So so you had this love story, and I'm curious, was that one dark romance, or when did the shift come over to this dark romance piece that you had?
And that's so funny because, again, it was another learning curve for me to understand genre and what genres were popular. Because I call it a love story because I had no idea what genre it was when I was writing it. I had the idea for a story, and I had these characters, and I just let it run its course. And I will admit that a lot of it was autobiographical because that was what I was used to doing, is writing from inside. And because I did that, I felt like I was making all the mistakes that first-time authors make. And I thought, I'm limiting myself a little bit here. It had some dark tones. There are some psychological elements to it. And I actually feel like I am going to, now that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to dust it off and try to do something with it in the future. Nice. But I pivoted to sci-fi and dystopia because I felt like it gave me a lot more room to play creatively.
Okay.
And
Give us a quick definition of what does sci-fi and dystopia mean?
Sure. So there's a lot of subgenres to sci-fi. So basically, if you want to blanket it, it's really just if your story is set in the future or in space, it's most likely sci-fi. It could be both. Dystopia it's also a futuristic landscape where basically things have gone wrong. There's been an apocalypse, there's been an oppressive government has taken over, or all of the above. And there's a fallout as a result within humanity because of this terrible thing that's happened, whatever it is. And so you can combine those, you can play around with them, you can separate them. It's just all a matter of, what you want to do and what story you're trying to tell, which is why I love it so much as a genre. Yeah. And it really let me say, no, this is what this is. Like I was able to tell people, like, this is the genre that you're getting when you read this book. Whereas with like the love story, I wrote it in a time when romance really wasn't the popular thing. I'll say that. And so I didn't know to sell it as a romance. I didn't know what to call it. And so I was just kind of like, I don't know, it's a story. You'll like it, I promise. That's how I pitched myself back then. I had no idea what I was doing. So that's, I think, giving myself more concrete genres to play with, and then telling people, hey, I wrote this sci-fi book.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you said, right, the sci-fi dystopian genre gave you expansiveness and enough expansiveness to find your place in it and not limit, it sounds like, where you may go with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of creative play. When people talk about writer's block, I bother them a little bit because I say I don't believe in it. But what I'm really saying is, I think that you're limiting yourself. If you're blocked, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You're writing when you're not supposed to be writing, or you're trying to stretch yourself too thin, or you're not giving yourself the space to try ideas. You're shutting yourself down. Your inner critic or your micromanaging boss that lives inside you is shutting you down. And so I always tell people, just play. It doesn't have to be this. You can always rewrite it. You can always change it. You can save that idea for later and use the other idea. You're not, married to everything that you write.
Yeah.
So I think that helps free people up to just pretend, and just that's what we're doing. We play pretend,
I mean, honestly, that's exactly what it is. And in a variety of the genres, that's exactly what we're doing. And we are tapping into that space and we're inserting our story in there. Kelly Alexander from Mississippi Gulf Coast says that's a good way to look at it with writing when you're not supposed to.
Yeah. I tell people that because they always make it about themselves. I mean, I know if a lot of writers are like me, we're very emotional and we put it on ourselves. I must not be a very good writer if I can't write today. If I can't write on the Tuesday where I'm supposed to be at the DMV at 4:00 and I'm trying to write something at 3:30, it's like, well, that's not your fault. It's just that you putting too much pressure on yourself. So thinking about that's not the time when you should be writing. There's a better time and a better place, maybe. There's a lot of things. I don't want to interrupt you, but
no. I think it's important for people to hear this because you're absolutely right. And as you were talking and you used the phrase creative play, it made me think about children at recess, right? And the freedom that they have and the number of games. So and part of my background was I studied play at recess. So talk about great research.
Yes.
And the creativity that emerges on a playground is incredible. And so for you to have that same type of energy when it comes to writing and if we were to free ourselves like children free themselves at recess. Oh my goodness, the stories we can tell.
Exactly. And that's the drafting process. We can save the structured environment for the editing, for the marketing. But when we're drafting, we need to have that separate space, I believe, as artists, because I consider our authors, writers to be artists. To just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And it doesn't have to look pretty. And it doesn't have to make the first draft doesn't make $1 million. That's okay.
That's right.
It's all part of the process. And there's so much, like I said, but the narratives, I believe, that come from the outside, and we put so much pressure on ourselves to be successful because we see other people's success. It's the writing process is not about any of that junk in your brain.
That's right.
Just get it out.
That's right. Great advice. Great advice. And the other thing that I like you mentioned earlier is that you wrote something. Now, you didn't push yourself to publish that. You kept it and you're looking at it now through an educated lens, an experienced lens.
Right.
And you're saying, I may be able to take this and extract some of it. I may choose to use all of it, but there may be some of it that I can utilize.
Yeah. And I think ultimately I did myself a service because I didn't just write one book and self-publish one book and then just sit there and twiddle my thumbs and say, okay, what now? Like I played around and I drafted something, and then I hit on something that I thought, okay, I can do something with this. So now I have this pipeline of things that I can go back to instead of having to be like, oh, I have to think of a new idea now. As I already have a bunch of ideas. It's a whole other process of going through them and being like, oh, but at least I have a starting point already. I have words on the page that I can work with instead of just a blank page that I'm staring at.
Definitely. So now you did the first one, and that was Star Lost. Well, you did Star Sick.
I did. Yeah.
You did Star Sick.
I do things in a fun, backwards way.
Right.
That's just how I am.
And as you said, so for people who are just joining us, Star Sick is the first book, but it plays out as the second book in the trilogy.
Yeah.
Right. And she was saying that Star Sick can be a standalone. So if you just want to read and be one and done, that's the one that you want to do. But then she turns around and she does Star Lost, which really ends up being book number 1. And then the one that's fresh off the press. I got mine when it was hot off the press.
It is.
Star Tribe, which is book 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you choose to publish all of these yourself? What was your publishing? Well, first let's talk about what was your editing process like? Because how many words are in these? Do these count as novels? What are these?
I think, well, with Star Sick, I was going for a standard novel length. I think that was for sci-fi, it's like 65 to 70,000 words.
Okay.
And then I thought, I'll write like a little novella prequel. That was the idea. So this one is only like, I don't know, maybe 50. Oops, it's upside down. 50,000 words, something like that. And then that one that you have is actually the longest of the 3. The word count is escaping me. I think it's probably like 75,000 words.
Okay.
Anyway, so, and again, with this genre, you can be pretty flexible with the word length, depending, or the word count and the length, depending, what you're trying to do.
Okay.
So.
All right. Now, for those who are joining us on the YouTube side of life on Ask Dr. Walls 525, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. I am posting the links to her books in the chat. So you can go ahead and click on those links and buy yourself a copy of the book. These are great stocking stuffers. Let me tell you all right now. Star Lost is currently going on paperback for $7.99. Come on now. This is
Yep, they're all on sale for the holidays.
They are all on sale for the holidays.
Yep.
So make sure you grab yourself a copy. You can grab, what age range would you say this is good for?
It's funny because I wrote with an adult audience in mind, but the way things are moving with young adult, it really doesn't have anything that would be inappropriate.
Okay.
I think, that would limit that audience from reading it. So I think, it's appropriate for any audience. I believe, older teens, I think would really enjoy this story. So that's what I'm telling people now.
It's making me think about movies like Divergent, and would you put it similar to stories like that?
I would. A few people who've read it have made that comparison. I think that the main comparison to Divergent for me, from my understanding, is that the main character has a huge weight on her shoulders from what she's experiencing within her own family and within the universe that she lives in. Okay. And society is set up in a hierarchical way in which, there are the ones, the haves and the have-nots, basically, which is something that is definitely present in this series. So if you want to read more about that, you're definitely going to find it for sure. A lot of people have made, it's my favorite mashup is Black Mirror meets The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfect timing with Wicked being out right now.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a good segue into talking about why I wrote it, because the Wizard of Oz thing is really what started it all. I had this idea when I was just drafting and creatively playing with what ifs, because that's my thing. And I said to myself, what if Dorothy didn't want to go back to Kansas? And what would be the angst, the anger, the animosity, the resentment maybe behind that? And so obviously I created a Dorothy-like character, but I put a spin on it. I gave her more snark. She's much older than Dorothy. She's much more,
I love it already.
Streetwise. And, there's no Auntie M, but there's a younger brother, actually, who is very much in line with what's going on and doesn't understand why she's rebelling, why she's unhappy.
Okay.
And so she's at odds with that familial element. And then in Star 6 specifically, you'll see a lot of the Wizard of Oz elements, because she moves through these spaces and meets these people within those spaces who introduce her to new perspectives and help her along her journey.
I love it.
So it has that structure.
Yeah.
So I can definitely, I would say that if you're into that, and like Wicked, it puts a spin on the original story, and it gives you new perspectives and why people do what they do.
Yeah. I love that. I'm super
Yeah.
excited. Now I have to get my other two, and they're only $7.99, so I have no excuse not to
Yes.
get them. But
There you go.
well, tell us this. Are you going to be anywhere between now and the end of the year where you'll be signing books or people can meet you in person or even at the top of the year?
The next event I have is until April.
Oh,
But there
wow.
may be things that are happening in between them, but I
Okay.
couldn't pass up the one in April because it's my hometown. It's
Okay.
literally like 10 minutes from where I live. If you know where Skippack, Pennsylvania is,
Yep.
they on their main drag on Route 73, they
Yes.
always have events, and they're doing one on April 12th, I believe, all day.
Fantastic.
So the plan is to do that one, potentially squeeze another one in between, but nothing's nailed down yet. So,
Okay. And if people want to stay abreast of what you're doing, books coming out, things like that, where's the best way for them to follow you and stay aware of what's going on?
I have a website, amymarieayres.com, but I'll be honest, I am much more active on Instagram at Amy Ayres Writes.
Okay.
And if you see, I mean, I post almost daily on there, and you know, like I'm always keeping up to breast with everything going on. So I was really excited because like one of my reels actually went like semi-viral.
Oh,
I say semi-viral. It's like 3,000 people liked it.
that works. That works. Look.
So now that's a huge number for me.
Yeah.
I'm just starting out. I'm just an indie author, but it was, you know, my take on traditional publishing versus self-publishing and how I feel they're different.
Okay.
And I've got a big response. So I think a lot of people agree with me.
Very good. Well, I'm going to drop that link in. I'll make sure I put that specific link in the write-up as well. So when people come back to watch the replay, they can just click on that and give you some more numbers.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's educate people a little bit. Why did you choose to do the self-publishing? Or let's talk about your publishing process.
Sure. Well, you want to talk about the editing process, I think.
Editing, yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll start there. Yeah, editing's not my favorite thing, but I'm in modes. I go into modes. I try to spend a month writing, and I give myself like a full 30 days to just focus on writing. And when those 30 days are up, usually, then I switch modes and I go into editing mode. And those are two different Amy's. That's what I tell people. So when I'm editing Amy, I am doing like a first self edit where I go through and honestly, my first draft is such a mess that I have notes all throughout where I'm just like, figure this out later, basically. And so I'm like, oh, great. I have to be the heavy and I have to figure all this out because this one was playing. So the other Amy was playing. So I get to the point where I feel like I can only read it one more time. That's really all I can say. I have a structure in mind while I'm writing it, but so editing for me is mostly just putting in all the stuff that I missed. That's the best way to explain it. I leave fixing all the little errors and stuff, which I am awful at, to my editor, who is a huge part of the process now. And I used to think I was terrible. I used to think that editors weren't necessary, and I eat my words now. But well, I was very precious about everything, years back, and I just thought, it is what it is, and why should I pay a person,
Yes.
So, but I know it's foolish, and I need this person desperately to find all the things that I don't see. That's how I see it. It's like I have an eagle eye, and she has like a double eagle eye.
Yes.
She picks the things that I don't see.
Yes.
So it's so important. She does a large part of the editing at this point because she's just better at it than I am.
Yeah. We were talking the other day on one of the episodes, and I had the opportunity to speak with a writers group and just talking about the value and the importance of editing. And it's helpful even when you work with someone who doesn't know you versus because like a family member or a friend knows what you mean. and they will fill in words that may not be there, and they won't call you out on some of the stuff that's not necessarily clear. Go ahead.
That's exactly right. Okay. So for me, it was like I used to have friends and family beta read, which was a huge mistake. Because, I mean, it's lovely that they want to help and they want to offer, but they don't know how to beta read. They know how to read something, be proud of you, congratulate you that you wrote something, because they could never do this. You know, that's I could never do this. I don't even know how. But a real beta reader isn't going to say that stuff to you. They're going to tell you, you need to look at this. You need to fix this. This doesn't sound right. I got confused here. This took me out of the story. What does this mean? You know, they'll say this is great, which is nice, but it's not all that. And I learned over time that that's not helpful. Like having people just tell me that I'm awesome at everything. It's not, I can't get better.
I got to grow.
Yeah. And I need people who are, I think, also authors to look at my writing and understanding the process and understanding, you know, what needs to be there, because your average reader doesn't always know that. They just look at a finished product and they don't know how that happened, but they appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's where I am with that advice, which I love.
Yes. And now, and tell us this. So when you're talking 65,000, 80,000 words, are you having someone edit it along the way? Are you completing the process and then handing them a quote unquote finished product, knowing that you're going to go back in and do some tweaks, but are you pretty much handing them a book and saying, here, have at it?
I think that's really, it's useful to give it to someone along the way if you're working with a developmental editor. I have one of the dark romance stories that I'm working with has seen a developmental editor and showed me all the areas where it needs work. But as far as giving my final draft in my head to my editor and her being like, no, this is your final draft. One more time, Amy. That to me is like the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I have too many eyes on it while I'm writing it, then I get it might just be me, but I get overwhelmed and I think, oh, I don't know which direction to go now. She's saying I could do this or I could do that. And I'm really indecisive and I don't know which one to pick. So it's better for me to just type the end, look at it a few times, and then say, okay, now you tell me what I should do with this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, you know, that you're letting people know, number one, there's an incredible level of self-awareness that goes into this process. It's also, of course, there's a level of vulnerability, because I was going to ask you, what was it like for you to take this project and hand it over to somebody for critique?
Right. Yeah. That's why she's so great. I feel like that's why we still work together and we have a really good professional relationship, is because initially I said to her, look, I don't know what I need. I don't know if I need a line editor. I don't know if I need, you know, like, I don't know where I guess I'm blind to where my faults are sometimes. And I said, you know, could you do both? Could you, you know, tell me what's missing? She does line editing, but she also does a little bit of developmental editing, where a really great thing that she does, I lean heavy into dialogue. So I will have maybe pages of a conversation and she'll make a note. So she said, I love this conversation they're having. Where are they? Are they like, you haven't, you know, I know they walked into a cafe in the beginning, but since they've entered the door, I don't know what they're doing or where they're sitting and I know all of that in my brain. I just didn't put it on the page yet. Because it was just so important for me for them to have that conversation. And so, like I said, she's that extra person to be like, okay, it's time to do the thing that you don't like doing in your first draft. And then reminding me, how does she feel about that? Like, she's almost like my character's therapist, because she'd be like, oh, well, how did she feel about him saying that to her.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I gotta find out. So yeah, she adds a lot to those aspects,
Yeah.
or at least just jumpstarts my brain into me remembering how it's supposed to go.
And I'm glad that you said that. And you mentioned line editor, developmental. I would tell the people the different types of editing. Usually I talk about like content and context, but talk about the different types of editors that you've worked with.
So the editor I work with now for like my sci-fi dystopian things, like I said, she does a mix of everything. And when I get my notes back from her, this is the best way to explain it, is it's a mix of, she gives me a document where she fixed all the typos and the errors. And she said, this is clean. I went through it with a fine tooth comb. Here's a document where I've highlighted areas where I feel like there should be more description. There should be more explanation here. There should, you should describe how the character's feeling or whatever that is. And then she writes me like a nice little blurb where she says like, I really love this part where this happened, but this other part is a little confusing. And then I take all of that information and I do a rewrite. And I've worked with a developmental editor who mostly just gave me the blurb. Where she wrote me, actually it was like a 5-page blurb. It was amazing. And she went through the entire story from beginning to end and said, this is the stuff I liked. This is where I think you're going. This is maybe where I think you should go with this. Maybe you don't need this part. So it's different. It's like, I feel like developmental editing is more fun because you get to be like, someone read my story and they liked it.
Yeah, right.
And then you get to see all the places where, you hit it, you did things right. And it feels good. It's good boost.
Yeah.
And then it cushions the blow of all the things that obviously you need to work on. Obviously, no one's perfect. You need to do the work and get better every time. And the developmental editors who are good, who know how to talk to authors, will tell you how to do that. And you get better because you're like, yay, I know what I'm doing now, sort of.
Yeah.
So that's the difference for me.
Good. Thank you. I think it's so important because a lot of times people, again, it's trusting someone with your work and it's making sure you get the right person and or people. I have 2 editors that I work with, one who has done my adult self-help books, and she was so helpful because like you said, she did the grammar, the punctuation, but then she also did the content, and it was like, this isn't clear. That may be a colloquialism in Philadelphia, but I'm in Florida and it doesn't read the same.
That's so relatable to me. Because my editor is also not from Philadelphia, and we've had discussions where I don't realize it. It just sounds like normal to me.
Yes.
But I'm writing characters who like live in the UK. And so we're very much like, okay, we're focusing on the slang that they use. We're focusing on the colloquialisms that they use.
Yes.
They can't slip in little all rights with one L.
Okay. Use guys doesn't exist over there. What's going on?
I know. So and it's so funny because I'm like, I don't know how that got in there. I was trying so hard to not have them sound like me. We got in there somehow. And what's funny, one of my characters is from the South too, and he speaks in a very colloquial way, and I feel like I almost like overdo it because I'm trying so hard to not make him sound like he's from southeastern Pennsylvania.
Right.
Like, it's hard to break those habits for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So now there's some editing. Now you publishing, why did you choose to go the way that you went?
Okay. So this might make me sound like I have a chip on my shoulder, but some people appreciate it. So I tried the traditional publishing route, probably not as hard as I should have, but I got sort of frustrated with the process because I feel it's a little outdated. That's my opinion. I feel like other industries move a little quicker and they're better at feedback. And I'm trying to say this in another way. I'm sorry, Kathleen.
It's not, say it as you. It's your truth. It's your experience.
Have like it's your channel, so I don't.
I appreciate it. Have at it. The people need to know.
Okay. So I feel like you know the process, okay? If you've tried it, you know that most of it is querying agents, getting in touch with agents that you feel would be the right fit to represent your book. Then they try to sell your book to publishing houses and so forth. But even that one minuscule step of writing the query and sending it to the agent is so hard in so many different ways. There's so much to think about, and it's nerve-wracking and it's disheartening. And it's not just about the rejection.
Time-consuming.
It's time-consuming, right? Everyone thinks, oh, you're just mad because you got rejected. No, it's more than that to me. I'll explain why. When you go on a job interview, which is sometimes how it feels, you submit the resume and the cover letter, which is kind of like the query, and then you meet the person face to face, and initially, okay, is this place a good fit for me? Do I want to work here? Or does this person think I'm a good fit? And then you either get the job or you don't get the job, and it's fine because you just move on and get a different job. But I feel like it's almost like going to a job interview and then like never hearing back.
Right.
And then not knowing why you didn't hear back, and then being like, well, how do I improve? They didn't tell me. And it isn't even about you. It's like about where the industry's going and how much money and it's just, there's so many things where it's just, there's too many question marks for me. Yeah. So my brain,
all of that.
My brain at some point was like, I can't handle this. I can't, I'm not built for this. I guess I'm impatient. And I just want to put something out in the world and see and have other people react to it. Or, good or bad. I want to go through that process. And I finally just said to myself, I'm just going to self-publish something and see what happens. And in the process of self-publishing, I feel like I regained so much more of that power because I was in charge of everything. If it didn't get done, it was on me. If the book didn't get created, if the cover didn't get made, if, the words didn't, all that stuff on me. I'm not waiting on somebody else to not tell me why they didn't do it. So obviously a lot of feelings around this. So one day I just decided I'm too impatient for traditional publishing. Like, sorry, it's me, it's on me. I'm not a good fit. So I started, and it was just so fun. Because the process of learning how to do the things, or even so, like knowing, okay, I'm not any good at this, I need to hire somebody else to help me. Finding people in the community and in the world who can do it and do it well is exciting to me. And, and then they are passionate about your project because they're like, oh, I love this idea. Let's play with this. And the process, I feel like you get it down to a science almost. You write the book, you create the cover, you do the formatting, and then, you publish it, and then you do the marketing. And it's like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. I'm the boss of this.
It is very empowering, I think. And as someone who is now, what am I up to? I'm looking at this pile over here in my library that I have self-published, all of them since 2009.
Ooh, love it.
Goodness gracious. What are we at? I don't know. 7, 8, something like that. And you're absolutely right, because the first one, I did the same thing. I marketed it to different literary agents. Will you accept this? Will you accept this? People were still mailing letters. They weren't necessarily using email. And you're waiting for things you don't know. And it was very restrictive for me. And that same piece of like, here I have what I consider this great book that is going to help people, and I'm waiting, and it's collecting dust. And I'm like, no, I need to get it out there, because this is one of some. This is not just one of one. I got to get this ball rolling here. So I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. And another big part of it is, once it is out in the world, like, you're in control of the royalties, you're in control of sales, and a lot of times, even if you do get accepted and they say they like it and everything, and you go through that whole process, that doesn't mean that the publisher is going to like it. And then that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to sell it.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that you're going to make the sales you thought you were going to.
That's right.
It's not a guarantee.
That's right.
You know?
Right.
So that was part of it for me. It was like, if it was a guarantee, if they say, we guarantee you that you will get this sold and we will give you the money right away.
Yes. That would be different.
Yeah.
That would be an
not
incentive.
like that anymore.
Right.
I know. It's a rough road.
Yeah. And you still have to do your hustle. You still have to go out. You still got to do your marketing. Yeah. So once I learned that reality, I was like, oh, well, I might as well do it myself. And I said, I'll do it like Wu-Tang and just have them in the back of my trunk. And
yes, because that's how it goes. You know, that's how a lot of people start out. I mean, so Wu-Tang started. So I mean, good enough for them. Good enough for me.
Exactly.
It's funny that reel. I don't know if you watched it or not, but it's the difference between them, I believe, where they have a watermelon in front of them.
Okay.
And the traditional publishing person says, okay, he takes the knife and he starts to sharpen it.
Uh-huh.
And the self-publishing person there is like standing there with the spoon in their mouth, like, and eventually, I don't know how she's magic. She pounds on the watermelon until it splits open and then starts digging into it with the spoon.
Oh, wow.
And that's just, and it got such a big response. And I honestly was just like, but this feels right. Like, this is kind of how I feel about it. You know, like this has been my experience where it's like, I got tired of watching the guy sharpen the knife. I didn't want to watch him sharpen the knife anymore.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
I have, well, look, let's take a look here real quick. Let's make it work.
Oh, and I love how he looks at her like, are you serious? The look on his face, though, it's so finished. He's like, wait, you could do that by yourself?
Exactly.
You didn't need my help.
Exactly. Yes, you nailed it.
Yeah. And thank you to the actors in that video.
Oh my goodness, so good. So everyone, I did put the link in the chat. It is also on the write-up. You'll be able to click on it. Her Instagram page is also there. All of her books, the first two books, Star Lost and Star Sick, are currently on sale at Amazon for $7.99, and Star Tribe is, I believe it was $14.99. These are great gifts to self. These are also great stocking stuffers. Please be sure to go out and support. And as she mentioned, these are good even for young adults. There's nothing she feels as though is inappropriate. If you're worried, read the book first and gift second. Yeah. So, but definitely like a 16 or up, 18 or up, I think they'll be just fine. So any other words of inspiration or closing thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. I know that we talked a little bit about how people are afraid to do the thing, and they almost, I think on some level, they think that we have like an audacity that we can do it. There must be some level of audacity that they don't have. And I always tell people, you know, it's okay, like, to do the thing that you want to do. You don't have to, like, you know, prove to anybody, but it's all about the desire. You have the desire. That means you can do it. You just have to put in the work. That's really all it is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I look forward to us staying connected in the new year, possibly having you come back on and share some more. All right. Fantastic. Everyone, definitely be sure to continue to follow Ask Dr. Walls 525. If you have not clicked the link, click that link to subscribe right now. I have some more shows coming up between now and the beginning of the holidays. Tomorrow at noon, I have Laura is coming on tomorrow. Monday, I have Master Jose Torres, who's an action star from his movie. And then Tuesday, I have Dr. Monique Wells, who does black tours about Black Paris, and whole bunch of other things. And then I don't know if you got a chance to meet SK at the writers event as well.
Oh yeah, I think I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does. She tries to call it steamy romance. I call it smut. So she'll be
That's what you call it. It's spicy.
it's spicy. It's spicy romance.
Yeah.
So she'll be joining us next Thursday. So please be sure to tune in to Ask Dr. Walls 525. Amy, once again, congratulations on all of your books and on the latest one. Everyone, definitely go check out what is the series called? The Luccee Winterscott series.
Yeah, that's the main character's name.
Okay. So. All right. We want to support Luccee.
Yes.
And all that she is doing. And so, all right, y'all, as always, continue to live your greatest life. And I will see you soon. God bless. All right. Be well. Bye-bye.